Hi, this is Geraldine again, and this is UFO Nightwatch.com. Today we're going to be talking about high-flying objects, moving stars, how to identify UFOs, and UFOs that we see every day.
Every day.
So Tana is an expert with seeing this because you've been doing this such a long time. So tell us about what are we expecting when we're looking at these stars and what are we looking for?
Yeah, so we generally have what we kind of classify as 3 different categories of the types of objects that we're going to see. This is kind of known in some cases as the most far away kind of object. So in that way, it can be a little lackluster if you consider it. But these types of objects that we see every night, because they're not interacting with our very close atmosphere, they give us quite a show on a very regular occasion. So yeah, a couple of things about this. Number one, one thing we have to do is we have to rule out satellites.
Right.
Okay, so moving stars, we call it moving stars because it's literally, if you look up in the goggles, which magnify the light 50,000 times, you're going to see a bunch of stars, but you're going to see some of those little bright little dots that are moving around. Now they're very high, so we don't see a structure, we just see that bright moving dot, right? So when they move from horizon to horizon at a particular speed, sometimes we can consider that these objects could be satellites. But what we're looking for, Geraldine, as you know, is we're looking for the anomalous behavior. And so there's a few different kinds of things that point to us that an object is behaving anomalously. So first of all, and I'll talk about your story last because I want you to share this, and that has to do with the way a UFO is communicating or exiting the scene. But one thing we'll see these kinds of crafts do is they might actually crisscross each other, which is something, to be quite honest, they don't do with their precious investments of satellites, right? So actually swooping over, and you could say, okay, maybe they're at different altitudes, okay? So there's that, but also very exciting when you see that. The other thing we see is formations that either stick together or actually split up at a certain point, which brings into the conversation also something that changes direction completely. Let's say it's going sky left, and then all of a sudden it stops and goes sky right and goes right back where it came, or does a zigzag, either slowly or quickly. All of these things are anomalous. They're not going to happen when you're observing satellites, right? And so we go into great detail about this on the tour, because we'll experience both satellites and all of these anomalous high-flying objects. We really do see these high-flying objects every night. The other thing that is really interesting is the way they leave the scene. Sometimes, because if they're not a satellite going from horizon to horizon and they're behaving anomalously, what they might be doing is right in the middle of the sky, up high, without any obstruction, they're completely fading out, which means they're either changing altitude or they're turning off lights, right? So there's some sort of intelligent source there. They could also shoot away. I really like these when they shoot away and dart away. It looks like a cartoon almost. These happen. We see this. We observe this. It's incredible. We may also get something that stops completely all of a sudden after moving for some time, and it does a little blink, and then it totally leaves and it doesn't come back, and we call that blinking out. But one thing I want to mention that we do is we have these lasers that we actually point out these UFOs to each other with, and not only are they good for pointing out these UFOs, but as Geraldine experienced, and I want to have you tell about that, we can actually communicate with these high-flying objects. So what I'll invite you to do, Geraldine, is to tell us about your very first night watch and what you experienced with what we call a power-up, and how that was actually a process that was initiated by your laser.
Right, and we're going to go over all of the equipment that you're going to be utilizing on your night watch tour on the next video. You can click here for that video, and it's going to be describing the laser that you're going to be using. It's amazing, very powerful. So my first time was my very first experience when me and Tana were driving up from Vegas, I believe it was, and we stopped by in Bakersfield. Now, when we were there, there was this very high-flying object that was moving, and it stopped, and it flared up. The light got so bright and it dimmed back down, and it would continue moving. And that is very clearly anomalous behavior that's not like a helicopter or an airplane or any other flying object. And we're going to do other videos on identifying those flying objects later as well as satellites. We'll be explaining those to you later. But when it moved and I was utilizing my laser, I was able to communicate with it. And it's so funny because Tana's like, let's talk to it, let's ask it questions. And believe it or not, we asked a question and it would respond to us by blinking the light. It was just unbelievable. It was magnificent. And with the flash of your laser, it would respond to that because it can see the laser. These are such powerful lasers that it picks up the beam. They can see it. They can see you down below.
And Geraldine, they go about 5 to 10 miles, these lasers, on any given night. So they are going up into the sky and they're observable from anything, flying around up there. And what Geraldine is describing is something we often call a power up. And it's not like a regular airplane blink. This is a slow, powerful brightness that it can sometimes take up a good length of the sky in some cases.
Right.
And then also dim back down. And it also has a very erratic pattern. For
Correct.
example, it's not going to just do it once every few seconds. Sometimes that's observed, but seemingly in a pattern. But it's, in this case, was responding to Geraldine's laser.
Yes.
And when she would communicate with the question and ask for a yes answer versus a no answer, it would either flare or not flare the power up. So these are very, very exciting occurrences.
Right.
We invite you to come on a night watch tour, experience some of these moving stars, some of these high-flying objects that we see. I mean, almost virtually every single night we're seeing
every
these.
night there's something.
And power-ups are very special, so when we get those, we really enjoy sharing that with you guys. And you too could have an experience like Geraldine.
Yeah,
We
so
look forward to
we'll
it.
see you soon.
We'll see you soon.